Occupy Wall Street in the Fed. Have you seen these protesters dressed in their latest fashion, name brand clothes, with their fancy cameras and cell phones and iPhones, organizing their rallies on social media like Facebook and Twitter? Protesting capitalism. And by the way, that's spelled C-A-P-I-T-A-L, not C-A-P-I-T-O-L. Now, I could get behind them if Occupy Wall Street meant, let's go down to Wall Street and find an occupation, get a job. But they want to end the Federal Reserve. They want a job. They want health care. And they want debt relief and an education. And they don't want anyone to make any money doing it, apparently. Or at least not too much money. But how much is too much? See, all those endeavors require people to work. And when people work, they want to be compensated. So who's going to pay for all those things? Who should work for you to educate you? Who should work for you to provide you with health care? And how much should that person earn? And where should they be taught? A school? Who will build it? Who will keep the lights on? Who will make the books? See, behind every item we use is a bigger business. A book has a publishing company, a printing company, a paper company, etc. See, once upon a time, some pilgrims decided that they were tired of religious oppression and went to a bank and financed a trip across the ocean in search of a better place. They needed money too. We need money. The question is, what shall money be? Should it be a rock of gold or silver? Or should it be a piece of paper? Well, why don't we use gold? After a while, that big bag of rocks is going to get heavy, and it doesn't fit very well in your wallet. So we asked ourselves, if we use paper money, should we start a bank? Well, after all the lessons we've learned throughout history, the Bank of England, for example, it didn't sound like a very good idea. See, we have a unique system that is comprised of public and private banks. The president selects 7 member governors who oversee the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve Board is a government agency. There are also 12 members of the Federal Open Market Committee, which are the heads of 12 Federal Reserve district banks. It is also overseen by various private banks across the country. So the Federal Reserve is both a public agency and a private bank. So, if we end the Fed, what will we replace it with? See, the Fed owns the dollar. The Fed is the dollar. See, right on the dollar, you can see all the markings of the Federal Reserve and proof that they own every dollar in your pocket. As a matter of fact, every dollar printed, the Federal Reserve counts as an asset. See, when you get rich enough that your interest income exceeds your liabilities, then you can simply live off of your money. This is why you cannot tax a rich person, because money, to them, is no object. They are living off the interest earned on their assets. All their bills are paid from the interest earned on the accumulated wealth. If you increase their tax burden, they simply increase their assets and earn more interest. All the rich need you to do is make their money work for them. You go work in their company, make their products so they can sell them, and then they pay their shareholders. The Federal Reserve basically does the same thing. It is not making any money or producing anything. They have a certain quantity of assets, such as gold, but they do not use it to guarantee anything such as the gold standard. It is simply printing a piece of paper that we see as something of value, that we barter for goods and services. The dollar is the fuel for the world's economic engine. The Federal Reserve is the ignition key that drives the world's economy. The world sees the dollar as the universal exchange currency. The Fed does not make money on its own money. Any money they receive, they printed. See, dollars go out the front door, and then they come right back in the back door. Money for the Fed means nothing. It's kind of an illusion. They make their profit by the productivity created in the market. See, the Fed can grow the economy by making more money available to the banks, or they can shrink the economy by removing money from the market. They can speed up the economy by lowering interest rates, or they can slow down the economy by raising interest rates. The banks lend money to the businesses expand and employ labor, the laborer gets a paycheck and then goes out into the world and spends it at another business or deposits it back in the bank, a Federal Reserve Bank. The businesses then take the money they got from the employees from their sales and they deposit the money back in the Federal Reserve Bank.
The Federal Reserve is the ignition to the economic engine. So if you end the Fed, you break the cycle of the engine. Unfortunately, people need to eat. So one thing will always continue: consumption. That part of the engine never stops. But you can stop any other part, and the engine of the economy will stop. If the workers go on strike, you stop the engine. Or if the businesses shut down, you stop the engine. Or if the banks shut down, you stop the engine. And if you end the Fed, you stop the engine. But one thing never stops: consumption never stops. Kill the Fed, kill the dollar, and eventually you'll probably kill people. It would take years for something else to take the place of the Federal Reserve. And in that time, people would go without jobs and food and medicine.
See, the Occupy Wall Street protesters are calling for the government to take over the Federal Reserve, to end the Federal Reserve, and let the government regulate our economy. Let the politicians regulate our economy, putting politics in charge of economics. But like we said before, the Federal Reserve is at least partially a private bank. So the protesters are suggesting that the government take over yet another private industry. Healthcare, the auto industry, the banking system, the housing industry, the student loan industry, they feel that the government can run things better than the private sector. But we all know how great the government is at running things. For example, the post office, the Veterans Administration, Social Security, Medicare. Need I say more? Look, it ain't perfect, but it's the best system in the history of the world. And I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.